Welcome to Beauty Will Save the World. And today I'm going to be speaking on one of the most beautiful writers that I've ever read, ever. That is Friedrich Hölderlin, who's a German writer of the Romantic age, the German idealists who I believe also influenced a lot of the romantic wave that got into the English speaking world. And this is Friedrich Hölderlin, uh, who's in to me, like the trinity of Hegel, Schelling, and Hölderlin. The two went to this Jena University at the same time and are considered to be pioneers of the German idealist movement. Of course, you can, of course, Novelis is there, Schlegel, and the like. So it's a very important writer, but also a very important writer to me because when I read this book, it was suggested to me by a German friend of mine, and I managed to get this beautiful translation by Howard Gaskill. You can go check it out. I see this nice cover, and you can see it's very annotated. It's my most read book. Like I've done, always go back to it over and over. So the pages hate to see me coming. And recently, I got Friedrich Hölderlin, Penguin Classics, Essays and Letters, which I'm currently reading, and I'm really loving. To be able to hear the poet in his personal words, and to put it in context is really amazing. To see, even after all these years have passed between us, and to still be able to identify with something in him through all those years and distances and cultures. It's truly amazing how the human spirit can continue. So I'll be reading a few excerpts um, from Hyperion, which is an epistles. It's written in form of letters, uh, style which I first came to when I read Sorrows of Young Werther. So probably it was an inspiration for him, but I'm not sure. So let's look at. I'll first read what he says about his book Hyperion in one of the letters to his friends. So far, there's a friend of his called Christian Ludwig Neufer, who he writes to very affectionately. It's the letters he writes to Ludwig is one of my favorite letters in here because he's so he's so open, so much himself, so unrestricted in how he expresses his emotions. Unlike when probably writes to somebody like Schiller, who's is like a living legend at this time. So he really tries to, uh, he writes in a different tone, especially, when you're writing to somebody you really admire, and probably you want to impress them or really get their attention. But here he's very honest with Christian, and this is what he says about the Hyperion. In a letter he writes in 1793, I admit I am not so despairing, and sometimes I think I must be able to instill into my little work some spark of the sweet flame that warms and illuminates me at such moments into my Hyperion, which at present is the life and soul of what I am. and also manage from time to time to produce something else for the delight of men and women. I leave, another party says, I leave it to your noble female friends to judge from the fragment I'll be sending to Hölderlin today whether my Hyperion might not one day take his place among the heroes who provide rather better entertainment than all the knights with their adventures and fine phrases. So I think by the time I was writing, maybe there were this knight errant tales and romantic um, sort of German romantic tales, and we have people like a tradition that gave rise to people like Wagner, and all the grandiose knights and everything. So you're right. Again, it's such a background, but with a twist of a different hero who's not as you know in the style of the knight errants. So Hyperion or Hermit in Greece is sort of he places his hero in Greece after it's lost its former glory. Of course, it was under the Ottoman Empire rule, and it is years and years after the classic Greek civilization lie in ruins, and Hyperion goes back and tries um to bring back and try to uh, in some sort of nostalgia think of the Greek culture in its glory days. So that's pretty much the backdrop of Hyperion. And so he writes to friends talking about their glory days, and walks through the landscape of Greece in its beauty, and he just romanticizes the whole thing in a very beautiful way. Of course, in the um, very romantic style of the time. So here's what he says about the book, and while leaving its charge to posterity. And I don't know if you'd be disappointed right now, or but at least you'd be glad that there's some guy who's making YouTube videos about his book. So I give you my solemn word. If the complete Hyperion isn't 3 times better than this fragment, I'll throw it on the fire without mercy. Altogether, if prosperity is not to be my judge, if soon I can't make that claim with prophetic certainty, I like you to strip, like you, I'll strip every string from my lyre and bury it in the rubble of the times. Well, I'm glad he didn't burn it, and so he must have really thought it good. And I do think it's amazing, and I wish many people would get to read it. So let's hear what he says in the Hyperion, the book itself. So we'll start from the forward which he wrote himself in introducing the book to the Germans. So he says, this is like one of my favorite forwards ever. So short. I mean, it's amazing how he says. Let me read it. I'd happily promise this book to the love of the Germans, but I fear some will read it like a compendium and be overly concerned with the force fabula docet, which is the moral of the story, whilst others will take it too lightly and neither party will understand it. Those who merely sniff my flower mistake its nature, so do those who pluck it merely for instruction. The resolution of the dissonances in a particular character is neither for mere reflection nor empty pleasure. The setting for what follows is not new, and I confess that I was once childish enough to try changing the book in this respect. But I became convinced that this setting was the only appropriate one for Hyperion's elegiac character, and was ashamed at my weakness in having been unduly swayed by the probable verdict of the public. I regret that for now it is not yet possible for everyone to judge the design of the work, but the second volume is to follow as soon as possible. So uh, that's what he says is like how I've always read books. I don't take it as instruction, of course, uh, purely, and then also I don't take it just as entertainment. There's a balance you have to get to really appreciate a good work of art in like this. So you appreciate it for its essence. When you get that balance, then you really get to appreciate the essence of the book, and not just read it lightly as an entertainment or take it too seriously as as the word, as your last word. So let's go to a few of the excerpts in the book, which I divided into three different parts. Uh, where he the parts from the parts when he acknowledges his sense of hopelessness and despair with the current state of things, and then to a point where he tries to you know um, look at the state of things and really uh, judge it in context of art and beauty, and then to the last parts where he sort of preaches hope and says that the office of the artist brings the hope to humanity, and that is like his message in the end, that he doesn't finish in a despairing tone. And so it's like a defense to poetry, a defense to beauty, and just a defense to humanity, you know, loving not only each other but loving beauty, and taking art seriously as a medium of restoring um, the essence of and the uh, endurance of the human condition, um, to achieve its its higher self. So at first, let's go to the places where he talks about the hopelessness of the status quo. So, dear friend, this is Hyperion to Bellarmine. Dear friend, there was a time when my breast too burst in great hopes, when for me too the joy of immortality throbbed in every pulse, when I would wander amid grand designs as if in some vast sylvan night, when like the fish of the ocean I'd happily press on and ever onwards in my shoreless future. So that's pretty bleak. So again, we'll go to another part when he announces sort of hopelessness, you know, which art will cure him from. Okay. letters to Bellarmine. When I see a child, he cried, and consider how demeaning and corrupting is the yoke that it will bear, and that it will languish, and as we do, that it will search for human beings, as we do, and ask, as we do, after the beautiful and the true, that it will fruitlessly waste away because it will be all alone, as we are, that it, O Greeks, just take your sons from their cradles and cast them into the river, so that at least they'll be spared your shame. Oh my god, when I read that, it was just, mind blowing, that despite all the suffering in the world and people still being born, and it just says, just take your young ones from the cradle and hit them against the rock so that it be spared the fate of growing up into such a world. I mean, this is still so very relevant. I mean, the humans in society is amazing at finding ways of self distraction, and it seems like they don't learn from history and things. What Hegel said, that what I've learned about history is that people don't learn from history. So we still see the same thing going on, and you can still identify with the anxiety of Hyperion at the time. So I'll read again another part where he's despairing. We speak of our hearts, our plans, as if they were ours, and yet it's a power outside ourselves that tosses it about and lays us in the grave just as it pleases, and we know neither whence it comes nor whither it goes. The inevitability of fate. Again, let's find another part which I really loved. Maybe the last of the hopeless phrases. Oh, you who poor whites, who feel this, you who poor wits, who feel this, you who too loath to talk of man's vocation, who too are gripped so through and through by the nothing that sways over us. So clearly we see that we are born for nothing, that we love is nothing, what we believe in is nothing, that we grind ourselves down for nothing, only so slowly pass over into nothing. It doesn't get bleaker than that. See? So let's see where he critiques the society and tries to um, show a bit of the beginning signs of hope. And, he says that society had become so rational, so cerebral, and, people had abandoned the sacred sense of beauty and purpose, and it became so materialistic. I think it's in the wake of the industrial revolution, and right now we see with the digital revolution that's going on, um, there's more and more disenchantment of the world, and people are escaping from the human and getting lost in the digital, such that the beautiful sense of the human spirit uh, is slowly disappearing. So, in this case, he talks about the rational society found himself. Amongst you, I became so very rational, learned to distinguish myself perfectly from what was around me, and now I'm set apart in the beautiful world, expelled from the garden of nature in which I grew and bloom and shrivel under the new day sun. Oh, man is a god when he dreams, a beggar when he thinks. And when inspiration's gone, he's left standing there like a delinquent son, cast out of the house by his father, staring at the pitiless pennies given as alms to help him on his way. That is just amazing, you know. Man is a god when he dreams, a beggar when he thinks. And when inspiration's gone, you know, is nothing. It's just left with the pitiful pennies. And so in the rational society, they had forgotten how to dream and they only think, which makes them beggars. That's amazing. Anyway, let's read another part. Uh, and still critiques uh, the emptiness of the society he finds himself. Alas, and how utterly hopeless was everything else I had and saw. Sometimes, when I went about among these polished people, it really seemed to me that human nature had broken down into so many species of beasts. Here, as everywhere, it was the men who were especially degenerate and corrupt. They are animals that howl when they hear music. But when talk turned to beauty of spirit and youthfulness of heart, your more mannerly humans laughed. Wolves slink off when someone strikes a light. When these people saw a spark of reason, they turned their back like thieves. So, still, I like that part when he says, uh, when but when talk turned to beauty of spirit and youthfulness, you know, they laughed. So, still, uh, okay. So we see a bit of ray of hope in this one. Aperion to Bellarmine, Book One. Dear friend, what were life without hope? A spark that leaps from the coal and perishes, and like a gust of wind hard in the dreary season, it soars for a moment and then it's gone. Should we think that's the way it is with us? Even the swallow seeks friendlier climes in winter. The heart runs around in the heat of the day, and its eyes seek streams of water. Who tells the infant its mother won't withhold her breast? And look, seeks it still. Another part. Okay, now he says that introduces here. This introduces the beauty, and it defines beauty this way: the first child of human of divine beauty is art. Without poetry, I said, there would never even be a philosophical people. What has philosophy? He responded. What has the cold sublimity of that science to do with poetry? Uh, Poetry, I said, sure, of my case, is the beginning and the end of that science. Poetry is the beginning and the end of philosophy. Okay, another part. It critiques how the society has abandoned the poets. It is heartrending to see your poets, your artists, and all who still honor the genius, who love the beautiful and nurture it. The good souls, they live in the world just like strangers in their own house. They're just like long suffering Ulysses when he sat at his door in beggar's garb while the shameless suitors roisted in the hall and asked, who has brought us this vagabond? Amazing. I mean, just amazing. Oh, Bella man, where a people loves the beautiful, where it honors the genius in its artist, there blows like breath of life a universal spirit. The bashful mind unfolds. Self conceit melts away, and all hearts are pious and great, and inspiration bring forth heroes. The homeland of all men is with such a people, and there the stranger loves to linger. But where divine nature and its artists are so abused, oh, their life's greatest joy is gone, and any other star is better than the earth. Their men, though born beautiful, become ever more wild and wasted. A servile disposition grows, and with rude courage, intemperate grows, with cares and with opulence, hunger and fear of famine. Each year's blessing becomes a curse, and all God takes flight. Yeah, that the fear of famine, that is the only motivation of a people, then any other star is better than Earth. You can might as well move to Mars. So on the last of the three sections of how I plan to do this is when he proclaims he proclaims the hope and that poetry and the beauty brings the humanity, how it is so essential and part of the whole of the earthly existence. So he says, it was so plain to see how everything that lives craves for more than its daily bread, how even the birds and beasts have their feast days. It was a rapturous sight, as when the mother teasingly asks wherever her dearest might be, and all of the children rush into her lap, and even the smallest stretches its arms from the cradle. So flew and leapt and strove all life into the heavenly air, and beetles and swallows and doves and storks coverted together in the heights and the depths in the joyous confusion. And what the earth held fast found its steps. Turning to flight, the horses went hurtling over the ditches and over the hedges. The deer, and from the ground, the sea, the fishes rose up and hopped above the surface. The natural environment, he says, even the natural environment doesn't only exist for just the daily bread, that they seek more. How much more should the human seek more than just sustenance? And we are brought to this world, a lovely place, um, and we don't see it, and we have really magnified our search for sustenance, that people have convinced themselves that their purpose is to make money, their purpose is to live a good life, their purpose is to live a good life in terms of the material sense. So he tries to say that that's not just it, there's so much more that we are made for. Anyway, let's go to the next. And he says of his experience, how delighted I was when some friendly face met me on the way, so long as it wasn't too dryly called out to me his good day. When a little girl came out of the woods and held out a bunch of strawberries for me to buy, with a look as though she'd rather make a gift of them. Or when a peasant sitting picking cherries in his streets called down from the branches and I passed and asked if I'd care not to try a handful. These were good omens for my superstitious heart. I mean, he still sees that all is not lost. There's still some beauty left in people. There's still some love. There's still some nobleness of spirit that he sees, and he sees them in the humblest of people, in the remotest of places, where people do not worry about progress and grandiose self improvement, where people just live and love one another and want to share the life they have. So I thought that was pretty beautiful. Let's see what else we have. So okay, there's so many annotations I did here so that I wouldn't waste a lot of time looking for them. But here I am trying to find it. Okay, here it is. Oh, you who seek the highest and the best, be it in the depths of knowledge, in the turmoil of action, in the darkness of the past, in the labyrinth of the future, in the graves or above the stars, do you know its name? The name of what is one and all? Its name is beauty. And I think that would just be a beautiful place to end this, end the reading of these excerpts. You know, I, I think this is like the best definition of beauty I've read. Yeah. Oh, you who seek the highest and the best, be it in the depths of knowledge, in the turmoil of action, in the darkness of the past, in the labyrinth of the future, in the graves or above the stars. Do you know its name? The name of what is one and all. Its name is beauty. And, the Hegel's aesthetics, Kant's aesthetics, it was, the Germans wrote a lot in the defense of fine art and beauty, and he does it in form of a work of art, which I think elevates it even higher than mere philosophizing, you know. And he makes the case for beauty, uh, by beauty itself, because his work is a work of beauty, and many people have spoken highly of in the afterword by the translator. He mentions what Auden said about this, and as you know, Auden is a writer whose opinion I highly value in terms of recommendations of good artworks and poetry. Where he said it's the most perfect exposition of romanticism I've ever read. That's what he says about Hyperion, and I couldn't agree more. The best exposition, perfect exposition of romanticism that I've ever read, and one of the best cases made for poetry and beauty and art, and the critique of an artless society and the abyss that would see us go down if we abandon these very ideal values. And reminds me of a quote by Beethoven, the things that are ordained for you, teach yourself to be one with those, and those who share them with you, treat them with love. You know, I don't know if it was Beethoven or who, but yeah. And so uh, to have realized that these are things that are ordained for me: beauty, art, poetry, music, and generally aesthetics. I- 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 I've always tried to make myself one with those, and so that's why I have really, really moused down this book like no other. And anybody who shares this love with me is like family to me, and would not surpass me in love. Beauty will save the world. Like and subscribe.